Have you ever stopped to wonder what it is you're truly chasing? We make the lists, we set the goals, we visualize the success. The bigger house, the loving partner, the thriving business, the freedom to travel. And we tell ourselves, when I get that, then I'll be fulfilled. Then I will finally feel complete. But what if we have it all backwards? What if the feeling of fulfillment isn't the finish line, but the starting point? What if the universe isn't waiting for you to earn your joy, but for you to simply accept that it's already yours? Today, I want to talk about a concept so simple, yet so profoundly life-altering that it might just unravel everything you've been taught about success and happiness. It's the idea that fulfillment is not a destination. It's your very nature. You are not a person seeking fulfillment. You are fulfillment itself, seeking to express itself through you. Stay with me, because if this clicks, if you can grasp this one truth deep in your bones, the frantic chase ends, and a life of effortless, spontaneous grace begins. Many years ago, I was caught in that very same trap. My life was a checklist of external validations. I was a professional at striving, a master of the hustle, and on the surface, it worked. I achieved things. I built a career, started a business, hit the income goals. But inside, there was always this quiet hum of anxiety, a subtle feeling of what's next. I would reach a goal, feel a brief surge of satisfaction, and almost immediately, the goalpost would move. The fulfillment was fleeting, a ghost I could never quite hold onto. I felt like I was running a marathon with no finish line in sight. I was living under a subtle but powerful illusion. The illusion that something outside of me needed to change for me to feel whole inside. It was during this time that I came across the timeless teachings of mystics like Neville Goddard, who said something that stopped me in my tracks. He spoke of disentangling our minds from the evidence of the senses. He taught that our habit of only believing what we can see, taste, and touch makes us completely blind to the infinite reality that exists just beyond our physical perception. In other words, I was letting the balance in my bank account dictate my feeling of abundance. I was letting my relationship status define my sense of being loved. I was letting the outside world tell me who I was. And the outside world, by its very nature, is always changing, always in flux. So, my inner state was a chaotic reflection of that external chaos. The great shift began when I started to experiment with a simple but radical idea. What if I decided I was already fulfilled? Not because I had everything I wanted, but for absolutely no reason at all. Just as a fundamental truth of my existence. What if I dared to feel completely, utterly whole right here, right now, amidst all my perceived imperfections and unmet desires? At first, my mind rebelled. It screamed, "Liar! Look at your debts. Look at your problems. How can you pretend to be fulfilled?" It presented a mountain of sensory evidence to prove me wrong. But this is the key. The instruction isn't to pretend or to engage in some kind of toxic positivity. It's not about putting a happy sticker on a leaking bucket. It's about shifting your identity. It's about remembering who you truly are behind the circumstances. Think of it like this. You exist. That is an undeniable fact. Before any thought, any emotion, any problem, there is just the silent, aware presence of I am. That presence doesn't need a reason to be. It just is. And that essential being, that core awareness, is already complete. It lacks nothing. It wants for nothing. It is pure, fulfilled existence. So the practice becomes a return to that home base. Whenever a desire pops up in my mind, a desire for more money, a desire for a new opportunity, I've learned to see it differently. I no longer see it as a sign of lack. Instead, I see it as existence tapping me on the shoulder, reminding me of a quality of fulfillment that I already am. The desire for wealth isn't a scream from an empty void. It's a gentle whisper from my inherent abundance, inviting me to express it in the physical world. The desire for a loving relationship isn't a sign of loneliness. It's my own inherent nature of love and connection wanting to take form. Do you see the difference? It's subtle, but it changes everything. When you operate from a place of lack, your energy is frantic, needy, and forceful. You try to manipulate reality, you worry about how things will happen, you stress over every obstacle. You're trying to fill a hole. But when you operate from the premise that you are already fulfilled, your energy is calm, magnetic, and allowing. You're not trying to get anything. You're simply allowing the fulfillment that you are to overflow into your reality. And because you are no longer generating thoughts of doubt, fear, and uncertainty, those interference patterns of the mind, the path clears. Things just start to flow. I remember when I was deep in debt, drowning in anxiety. My old approach was to work harder, to stress more, to force solutions. It was exhausting. The new experiment was to, several times a day, close my eyes and ignore the frantic calls from collectors and the terrifying bank statements. I would sit and simply feel what it would be like to be financially free. Not the joy of receiving a giant check, but the quiet peace of being secure, the feeling of relief, the calm certainty that all is well. I wasn't visualizing how it would happen. I was steeping my consciousness in the feeling of the end result. I was thinking from the state of being fulfilled, not of it. And the most magical thing happened. Spontaneously, ideas started to emerge. I felt a sudden intuitive nudge to contact an old colleague I hadn't spoken to in years. My mind, the logical part, protested. Why? What will you say? That's random. But because I was committed to this feeling of flow, I just did it. That one conversation led to a freelance project. That project paid off a chunk of debt, but more importantly, it introduced me to someone who later became a key partner in my IT business. That business eventually generated millions. Looking back, I could never have planned that specific sequence of events. My stressing, striving, logical mind could never have architected that path. It was a bridge of incidents that unfolded naturally, spontaneously, and gracefully, all because I stopped trying to build the bridge myself and instead simply focused on what it felt like to be on the other side. This is what it means to run your life from a state of flow. It's not about being passive or lazy, far from it. Action becomes inspired, not forced. When you know you are completely fulfilled, your doing arises from your being. You get an idea for a project, and you feel a genuine, joyful pull to work on it, not a stressful obligation. A solution to a problem just appears in your mind while you're on a walk, not because you were wrestling with it for hours at your desk. You meet the perfect person, not because you were swiping desperately on dating apps, but because you were out enjoying your own wonderfully fulfilled life, and your energy just naturally harmonized with theirs. You stop questioning your intuition. That inner voice becomes clearer and clearer, because it's no longer muffled by the static of fear and doubt. Your way becomes the best way, because it's the path of least resistance, tailor-made for you by the deepest part of your own consciousness. Many people hear this and ask, but what is my way? What is my style? How do I find it? You don't find it, you allow it to emerge. And it emerges when you release the mental conditioning that says you have to do things the way someone else did. I see this all the time in the world of business. An entrepreneur reads a book by a famous CEO and thinks, okay, I must wake up at 4 a.m., take ice baths, and follow this exact 17-step marketing funnel. They try to force themselves into a mold that isn't theirs. They might get some results, but they'll likely burn out because it's not their natural rhythm. It's not in harmony with their being. True mastery is finding your own unique rhythm in every area of life, in your work, in your relationships, in your health. And that rhythm reveals itself when you trust that you, in your fulfilled state, already have all the answers. The ideas for innovation, the strategy for marketing, the perfect person to hire, they are all contained within you, waiting for you to get quiet enough to hear them. Think of it this way. Consciousness, God, the universe, whatever you wish to call it, is playing all the parts. There is only one source. That source is your own wonderful human imagination. When you imagine a scene, you are the director, the actor, and the audience all at once. When you live your life from the premise of us versus them, or me versus the world, you are creating conflict within your own consciousness. You are literally fighting yourself. You create villains and victims, struggles and obstacles, because you are identified with a limited part of the whole. But when you realize that everyone is you pushed out, that the entire world is a mirror reflecting your own state of being, the conflict ceases. You recognize that the perfect business partner, the ideal client, the loving friend, they are not separate entities to be conquered or won over. They are harmonious aspects of your own fulfilled being, showing up to play their part perfectly in your reality. You see only harmony because you are harmony. I started holding meetups and in-person events for my community, and people often asked me how much work it must be to plan and coordinate everything. They imagined complex spreadsheets, venue negotiations, and endless logistics. The truth is, I do very minimal planning. My only plan is to maintain the feeling that we are all gathering to experience and celebrate our mutual fulfillment. And from that state, everything falls into place. The perfect venue just seems to appear. People come up with ideas on the fly that everyone loves. The conversations flow with a sense of perfect timing and harmony. It works because I'm not trying to control the details. I am trusting the larger intelligence, the one consciousness, to orchestrate the details in a way far more perfect than my limited, logical mind ever could. This doesn't mean you will just sit on a chair and do nothing, though you can if you want to. For most of us, being fulfilled means we desire to experience that fulfillment in rich and beautiful ways. We want to create, to connect, to explore, to learn. I love to travel, I love to snowboard, I love to build businesses, I love to connect with new people. These are the ways my fulfillment loves to express itself. Your ways will be different, and they are perfect. The key is to stop judging your desires and to stop believing that you need the manifestation of those desires in order to finally feel okay. You are already okay. You are more than okay. You are completely fulfilled. The things you desire are not meant to complete you. They are meant to be a playground for the completion that you already are. So I invite you to try this experiment. For the next week, for the next day, even just for the next hour, drop the story of what's missing. Release the need for things to be different. Whenever you feel that old familiar pang of lack or anxiety, just pause, take a breath, and remember the silent, still awareness that is witnessing it all. Connect with that deep inner knowing. Feel into the simple, unconditional truth that because you exist, you are whole. And from that space of quiet fulfillment, watch as your world begins to effortlessly rearrange itself to reflect the truth of who you really are. It won't happen through force. It will happen by grace. It will be your way, the best way, unfolding perfectly just for you.